Hey, this is Brian.
And Shelby.
And you're listening to the Hyperspace
Pod Blast. Aren't you a little short for a podcast?
Huh? Welcome to the Star Wars.
The Star Wars.
Yep, the one and only.
I like it.
Oh, good grief. Okay, so now that we have two anthology, standalone Star Wars stories, whatever we're calling them now, we can finally compare Melu runs to Melu runs.
Oh my god.
When it comes to non-saga Star Wars movies.
Oh.
You're welcome. Very on the nose. Very on brand.
I like it. Good.
So with that in mind, we're going to go through a few categories and try to determine which of the two current Star Wars stories did it better. It's kind of like who wore it better, except the Star Wars movie version.
I like it. At this point, I wish we were a YouTube podcast so we could have the two things side by side. Be like, who did it better?
You'll just have to imagine it in your head.
Yes.
Audience.
So.
All right, let's start. Yeah, let's start with new characters.
Yes.
Which movie made better use of new characters? This one is easy for me.
Really?
Yes.
Then you go first if it's so
Rogue
easy.
One.
Okay.
Times a million.
Yeah.
The new characters in Solo, while cool, are mostly inconsequential.
See, now this is probably going to be strange for everyone because everyone knows how much I love Rogue One.
True, everyone.
Everyone.
It is known.
It is known. But I was thinking about how quickly Solo made me care about some of these new characters, even though we see them for a brief moment. I mean, if someone totaled up how many minutes and seconds Rio was on screen.
Yeah, it's not very many.
It's not very many, but I love him.
He is.
So I'm wondering, does that mean that they were better with new characters in Solo? I don't know.
I mean, isn't Jyn Erso your favorite Star Wars character?
Well, yeah, I mean.
Okay.
You can't judge it all on one character. What I'm trying to say is, did they do a better job because in a short amount of time, they made me care so much?
I think they did. But just with Rio, I mean, Val was an unfortunate waste. I didn't think L3 was that great if you're just taking the movie. And I mean, because she's kind of like a joke.
Well, yeah, I feel like if you took the movie I feel like I'm so influenced by Last Shot.
I know, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I at the same time think that it has no influence and has all the influence.
Right.
As
I feel
far
like
as
I love
L3 goes.
Yeah, L3, I feel so much more connected to L3 because of reading Last Shot versus if I had just seen the movie, I don't know if I would have liked her so much.
Right.
I definitely say I like K2 better.
Oh, for sure.
It's just
sorry.
I do. I think it's just because.
And I mean, come on, let's Dryden Voss versus Krennic.
Oh well,
yeah, that's a joke.
Yeah,
it's hands down Rogue One. Every new character destroys, in my opinion. Mostly because the movie is about new characters.
Yeah.
I mean, the heart of the movie is about the whole little snippet from the crawl, but it's almost all new characters with cameos / very minor appearances from other characters. Where Solo is,
an expansion on
about Solo
who we know already. Yeah,
exactly.
I would agree with that. I think that if I step back from Jyn Erso and I think about Cassian, my gosh.
I mean, Space Bros. Come on.
Space Bros.
Best part.
Yeah, I think I'll have to give this to Rogue One.
That's right. I knew in your heart of hearts you knew the right answer.
I did. I was just trying to not be biased.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we mentioned it in our Solo review or whatever you want to call it. It's just, for me, I loved Rio, but I didn't really feel anything when he died because I was just like, oh, this guy's really cool. Oh, yeah, he has to die because Han has to be the pilot. Duh. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then they did Val Dirty and...
Yeah, they really did. That's probably my least favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah, I think that might be.
And even taking away the whole female and person of color aspect from it, that's just a terrible narrative idea for any person in that position to make. It makes no sense. But anyway, we digress.
So flipping the script to existing characters who made better use of existing characters.
Man, I think this is another... How do you not say Solo?
I mean, Tarkin and Vader.
Ooh, I hadn't even thought about Tarkin. And that's just I
feel like Rogue One took Tarkin to a whole new level.
They brought him back from the dead, just like Lyra.
That's a good one.
Yeah, the Vader scene is what I keep coming back to in my head as far as using existing characters
And Mon
well.
Mothma?
Yeah, it's all like super backgroundy though, I guess is what.
Okay.
And honestly though, I think that's the way you should use existing Star Wars characters.
I do.
I don't like the idea
I think it
of,
made better use of them. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, fair. Except that
Although
the movie wouldn't exist without Solo and Lando. So
But if we take like what they did with existing characters, it definitely goes to Solo, because the development that they put into both Han and Lando especially, it's extraordinary. I
agree.
love it.
Yeah, I would have to give it to Solo. And I mean, it feels like a cop out, like I said, because the movie's about Solo, so you feel like obviously you have to give him the nod. But I feel like it was a better use of the characters, because it wouldn't be as interesting if you replaced them with new characters and then you watched it.
I agree.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're watching, it's like, okay, this is a Star Wars movie, but who are all these people? I mean, I think it would still be good, but I think it having Solo, Lando, Chewie, I think that gives it a little more weight and it gives it a little more familiarity.
So you would say that the story of Solo, if it wasn't someone we cared about already, would not be as good.
Correct.
Okay. If you replaced all of the characters who we already know in Solo, we wouldn't like it as much.
I think yes.
I
would love it for its attempt at being fresh and new and not inclusive of, this whole small galaxy thing that for whatever reason people seem to love.
Which is okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But-
fine. It's not my cup of tea, but
Right.
whatever.
You like a lot of cream and sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
With a splash of tea.
I don't like all the same tea
In the microwave.
all the time. Hey, shush. Yeah, I don't know. I give it to Solo. I think, but to be honest, the way Rogue One uses, I guess, like you said, the way they use the existing characters is pretty close to perfect. They kind of, aside from the last scene, Vader doesn't need to be in it. Like Krennic going to Vader's castle, while very cool, is kind of like, that didn't really need to happen. But having Bail in there, having Mon Mothma, like you said, it really works, I think.
Yeah,
But I still give it to Solo.
I do too.
Dun, 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 dun.
We're in agreement.
Amazing. How about creatures and aliens? Which movie utilized creatures and aliens more effectively? I think this is a no-brainer too.
Really?
Yes.
Go first then.
I have to give it to Solo. Come on. Madame Proxima,
Oh, yeah.
the Corellian Hounds, the Space Beholder, and actually having original trilogy aliens in a new Star Wars movie.
Yeah, you kind of win when you
Thank
do
you,
that.
Jesus.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean,
Borgullet is
I was
Borgullet.
just going to say, I love Borgullet. Like, he gets a lot of flack,
I
but
don't
I think it's a
understand
really
it.
cool...
I don't understand why everyone hates
Yeah.
Borgullet, because I love
I
Borgullet
think
and
it's
the
a cool-
concept of Borgullet.
Exactly. And I love a lot of the alien species they introduced in Rogue One. But being that it touches so close on A New Hope, you think that it would be at least...
Well, they have a cameo of like...
Well, yeah, Ponda Baba, because... But I think other than that, there aren't any original trilogy aliens. There might be. I don't know. I'm probably forgetting something. But
I mean, I like Jyn being in that cell with her cellmate.
yeah, like
That was-
all the aliens in there were awesome. Like no complaints. Just for me, I like a little flavor of that.
I think what
existing
tips
aliens.
I think what tips it in Solo's favor is Madame Proxima.
Yes, that's such a cool.
She
and the fact
was
that
great. She had this Jabba feel without being Jabba, or like feeling like she was trying to be Jabba.
I agree.
I think
And
they hit like the perfect middle ground, and having it at the beginning was really good.
it really was. I had no idea like what to expect.
It had this like slumlord feel without it being like, oh, they're trying to make her the new Jabba.
Mm-hmm. I
And
agree.
I appreciate that to have. I mean, that's a tough thing to do, to harness that feeling without feeling like a copy.
Right. That's without being derivative, which
Yeah.
she
was-
kind of is. Anyway,
I mean,
but what I was gonna try to say like 3 times there, but you kept going with
sorry.
strong feelings and it was good. I like that she spoke basic. I thought that was a tremendous idea. Like they could have made the super alien looking alien speak some sort of alien language, but the fact that she spoke basic, I think really enhanced the character for me.
Interesting.
Because that's one thing about Jabba, like he's in your face alien. Everything about him is alien. And this is another very non-humanoid alien, but it has that, basic tongue aspect to it that kind of, I think it gives her more of a human quality than Jabba has, even though Jabba has like normal arms at least, sort of.
Good point.
Insightful.
Yeah. Madame Proxima is basically what tips this over the edge for me.
The Corellian hounds and the Space Beholder really helped me too.
The Space Beholder, I mean, I've told you before that at first I was like, oh, is this a Purgle?
I know.
Which I would have been okay with.
Nope.
I know you wouldn't. But I was like, oh, okay. I mean, this is like a nasty Purgle. This is what Purgles look like IRL when they're not animated. They're not as cute. But I like how vicious this Beholder essentially was. I like how we're calling it a Beholder now.
Oh, it definitely is a mutant Space Beholder. If you don't know what that is,
Into the Maw.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I liked it.
Yeah. Speaking of the Maw, what about locations?
Ooh.
Which movie had more interesting locations / which movie's locations felt more Star Wars-y?
That's hard.
I know, this one's tough. This is the first one that's not a no-brainer for me.
Because, and here's why I would argue for either side. Solo took us to places that are not typical of Star Wars, which kind of...
So did Rogue One, I think. When have we ever been to a beautiful beach location? I guess maybe you could say Naboo.
Yeah.
So...
What I was trying to say is, like, Solo took us to this tropical kind of ocean island sort of place. Took us to the mining...
That's true. I guess it was like...
area. It took us to the snow...
Yeah, it took us
caps.
all over the place.
I mean, it took you all over the world with the mud pits and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, those were some interesting Star Wars feels, which I liked.
Mm-hmm.
However, I would argue for Rogue One in the sense that it made me feel like I was there. I think Rogue One did a better job of making me feel like the grass was wet beneath me when Jyn Erso is running through away from the Death Troopers.
True, okay.
And that I felt like the arid air around me whenever she was walking through Jeddah.
Yeah.
I felt more there, and I felt like the heat of the magma when you're around Vader's castle.
Ooh.
I felt like the visual aspect of the locations might have been better or more immersive in Rogue One.
Yeah,
but I liked the diversity in Solo of these locations.
Well, I think both of them had that, honestly. You didn't really get a snow theme in Rogue One, but otherwise, I mean, you had tropical, you had the rain place, you had Jeddah, obviously. And I kind of think of the last place in Solo as Jeddah with a beach.
Kinda.
But yeah, that's interesting, and I wonder if it has anything to do with the Solo movie being so actual, like literally dark, not that figurative darkness that people talk about when they talk about films. But a lot of that movie is just toned really dark.
Yeah.
Visually. So I think a lot of people have even said online, if you're not watching it at a fairly top-notch cinema, it's kind of garbage movie. Like a lot of it looks
I hadn't
black
heard that, but
where details should be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Corellia was beautiful, like in a nasty, dirty way.
In the way that you would think it would be. I mean, it's an industrial. They build ships. It's kind of like, old Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
like
actually.
The steel mills and stuff. Like, it makes perfect sense that it would look like that.
It does make me feel like Pittsburgh.
Right. There would be no gleaming beauty like Coruscant if all you're doing is building ships all the time. Like, it's not really how it works.
They did a good job.
Yeah, I thought so too. I liked, it was nice to finally see a locale that has been around for decades on screen, I think.
And an urban area.
Yeah. That for me really amped up the Star Warsiness, if that makes sense. But I think that might be because of the whole Legends aspect. Like, none of the places in Rogue One felt particularly Star Warsy because they were brand new, where Corellia feels Star Warsy because it's been in Star Wars forever. So I would give Solo the nod for Star Warsiness, which I'm pretty sure is a real word, and Rogue One the nod for interesting, because Scarif to me was just like so neat. Of course, can you imagine the Moff that decided, yeah, we should definitely put this research facility, holding place, whatever it was, on this beautiful tropical island, and I will volunteer to be in charge of it. No problem. I will do this for my empire.
I know, making a huge sacrifice, guys.
Exactly. Like, that just seems like something some middle management yuppie would do. Yeah, it's perfect. Anyway.
think I agree. Yeah. I would give the Star Wars feel to Solo and the interesting kind of immersive feel to Rogue One, to locations. So kind of a draw. It's just very different.
Yeah. See how we handled that diplomatically?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So story.
Story, yes.
Which movie had a better story and which one had more of that Star Wars feeling, which is definitely two different questions.
Yes, I would agree. And man, this one's hard. Why did I write this question? Star Wars feeling, I have to give the Solo.
Ooh,
And
I think we're going to fight.
Oh, good. About time. I felt like when I left Solo, I was grinning and I had that like, I just watched Star Wars feeling. You know what I mean? Like that old and that old prequels feeling of, I just watched me some Star Wars.
I don't know what that feeling is, but okay.
Okay. Well, if you're maybe it's more of a nostalgia based thing, but it felt like an original trilogy movie, if that makes sense. Even though Rogue One, I think, works perfectly with the original trilogy as far as a synchronous story. It still feels like a different type of movie, where Solo feels like an original trilogy movie, and it's beautiful. But the other, as far as regular story, man, I don't know.
I think for just a story in general, I vote Rogue One.
Okay.
And I also think for a Star Wars feeling, I vote Rogue One. Because...
Wow. Hashtag favorite movie.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you watch Rogue One, and then if you were to instantly watch A New Hope, there's this seamless transition. And it's so interesting to think about how many years are between those two movies and the thoughts behind them. And yet they achieved that seamless transition. Thanks in part to all of the bushy 70s mustaches they included in Rogue One. Definitely. And, I mean, Solo is extremely Star Wars-y. True. There's, just by including those characters is what makes it Star Wars-y. And I almost would argue that maybe that's all that makes it super Star Wars-y, is the characters, which include the Falcon. True. And I think that's really what does it. And I think it pushes the boundaries outside of Star Wars-y beyond that. I think a lot of the story itself is less of a Star Wars story. It's super twist and turn. That's a good point. Yeah, it is like a lot of those into like double, triple, quadruple, whatever crossing they do. Yeah. Is really not something we've seen, and it's fun. It was fun. Exactly. And just because I'm not trying to say that it's not fun, because fun is, if I were to rate them on fun, I'd give it to Solo. Right. But I think as far as Star Wars feel, it's Rogue One, because Solo was very different. It was a very different movie, and I like it for that. I think Rogue One was too, though. Like, it was more of a war movie. It had more of that feel, and I like that. Absolutely. But Star Wars, yeah, it's the second word. Fair. So it feels more inclusive to Star Wars to me. Very good. I'm gonna abstain from better story because I can't. Okay. I can't decide. All right. So let's move on to humor. Funny. Nice. Very nice. And I mean, humor is something, even though people have said, like, oh, The Last Jedi tried to be too funny. It wasn't funny at all. I mean, it was. But I think the problem is, I think all Star you got Wars, was like a, I don't know. There's some parts that are pretty fun. But Star Wars has always been funny. It's just never really tried to be funny, except the bad puns that 3PO makes on Geonosis. But I think The Last Jedi was actively trying to be funny in spots. Obviously, with the General Hugs thing, like you're trying to be funny. I think Solo had more of that, just funny because it's funny. And so did Rogue One. Like K2, almost every line K2 says is hilarious. Well, it's that dry humor. Yeah. It's the I'm not trying hard humor. Right. Well, then you also had the are you kidding me, I'm blind. But like that's obviously trying to be funny, but for whatever reason that really works. It does. But I would say Solo. Yeah, me too. Just Solo was more fun. And I mean, like, there's also, like, humor and fun. Right. It's just a more lighthearted, even though there's some, darker moments. It's a much more lighthearted movie than Rogue One. And I think probably my biggest criticism of Solo would be that there needed to be more gravity in moments, a little bit more heavier portions of the movie. But overall, it was very light. And I thought the humor was really good and well delivered. Yes, very much. Like...
Beckett talking about hurting his thumbs.
It really hurt my thumbs.
Yeah, it's just such a
That was-
throwaway line, but it's funny.
It is funny. And even the parts that aren't meant to be funny, but it's just comical and you're like, oh, that's so great. Whoa, 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 Han.
Yeah. I think that's more funny when you say it than anything.
Maybe. I don't know. I like it. I find it funny. I find it...
Yeah, it's terrific.
It's great. I think that Solo takes the humor category, if you will.
I would agree. I think Rogue One's humor was done really well. It was intermingled where it needed to be, but I would give it to Solo
It
as well.
lifted Rogue One up so that you didn't walk out and be like, well, that was a depressing
right,
movie.
Yeah, it helped you not.
You needed it. It had just enough humor to make it so that people didn't walk out and be like, what did I just watch?
Yeah.
That was sad.
Right. It didn't give you that Infinity War moment on your way out.
For real. For real.
If only half of them had died, but anyway.
Sorry, guys, if you haven't seen it yet.
Oh, it's too
I mean,
late
that's
now.
too late.
All
We're
right.
in the end game now. You're welcome.
Too much. Okay. Overall, I think this one's easy for you since one of them is your favorite Star Wars movie.
And still is. I mean, maybe I
So-
haven't conveyed that yet, but
True.
yes, it is. It still is my favorite Star Wars movie, and I was worried a little bit going in because I was like, oh my gosh, what if I like this more than Rogue One?
Yeah.
Who am I? I'm Jenna, so... Anyway,
Oh, geez. You're an anthology girl. That's all it is.
yeah, that was confirmed.
Yeah. And
Actually,
honestly,
I think that going outside of the saga films,
Mhm.
I guess that's the sound effect for saga now.
It's kind of like a dud cannon sound.
Pew, 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 pew.
Okay.
I think they pushed the envelope to outside of what you think Star Wars should be, and I like it.
Yeah, as I think more about it, this Disney era, this post Lucas, whatever you want to call it, I think I like the anthology films better, the Star Wars stories as a whole. I think I like them better than what they did with the saga.
Is that hard for you to say?
No, I'm upset that I get to say it, but it's not. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure it's harder for you to say than for me.
Well, yeah, to be more, longer ingrained in it, I guess. But I think part of the problem is, too, that you come up with all these ideas, and with Legends, it doesn't help to give you a background on what you are expecting. And then when you don't get that, even when it's good, you're like, I like this better, if that makes sense.
So overall, where do you cast your vote? Because everyone knows I vote for Rogue One.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah?
Rogue One's
Okay.
my favorite post-Disney movie still. And I think for a while I was saying that The Last Jedi would be second, but I think Solo has moved into second. The Last Jedi being third, and A New Hope number 2 is number 4.
Cool.
Positivity. Anyway, lasting impression. Which movie do you think will leave the most lasting impression on the Star Wars universe and on fandom?
Definitely Rogue One.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. No question. I think it also has to do with Rogue One being the first non-saga film.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's going to be a really,
Everyone's gonna remember that.
lasting impression.
And I
yeah.
think that Rogue One had so much to live up to, so it was just like a big deal.
Yeah, it definitely broke the mold. It
did.
The episodic mold.
Plus, I just don't think that Solo can hold a candle in villains to what we had in Rogue One.
No, I like Dryden Voss, but he's nobody.
He's no Krennic.
And
He is no Krennic.
not even close. And if we want to talk about the spiky-headed spider legs in the room, that was completely unnecessary, in my opinion.
Your opinion.
I would rather that have been Jabba, or I would rather that have been, I don't know, somebody new, or anything but Maul, who should be dead. But
Yeah. This is where Brian and I, this is the source of all of our lovers' quarrels.
yes, for sure.
Every single one. It's all about Maul.
Always about Maul.
Except not. But
Nope.
I liked Maul. Do I think Jabba would have been better?
Yes.
Probably.
But yeah, lasting impression.
Lasting impression.
I'm with you.
I think that Rogue One's going to be something everyone remembers for longer. I think Solo is going to be that movie that someone will pop in for comfort at any time whenever they just want to watch something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Rogue
it's
One is
definitely
not something you just sit down and watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Solo will be. Solo will
Solo's-
be something that you just turn on when you want to watch Star Wars and you don't know what, and you just want something fun, and you just pop that in, and you're going to
Perfect.
watch Solo, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's a really good on in the background doing other things movie. Like flipping through channels. Oh, Solo's on.
Yeah.
That kind of.
I think it's going to be equal to that, like, rewatchability of the original trilogy.
I think so.
I think Rogue One may not have that.
That's true.
You have to be in the mood to watch Rogue One.
I would agree.
So I think Solo has that, I don't know if you'd call it an upper hand, to name it a background movie in your life to just turn on whenever. But it's just a different place in your appreciation of fandom, in my opinion. Or at least that's how I feel about the two movies.
That makes sense. So I think what you're saying is that Solo will have a bigger impact on fandom, but Rogue One has a more lasting impression as far as all things Star Wars go.
I think so.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean...
Although, I was going to make the point of Rogue One has this impact that there are so many stories of heroism embedded in other stories of these small people that contributed to the rebellion.
And I mean, that's the point right there. Obviously, Rogue One has more significance in the overall Star Wars story.
But that's the universe, not the fandom. The fandom is going to love Solo, in my opinion, more over the years. And even though maybe fandom has said, oh, Solo was a flop.
That's because they read it online.
Yeah, exactly. Some article told them.
Solo wasn't good? I don't like it anymore.
Right? Oh, did it not sell as many tickets? Apparently I don't like this movie. Because that's how that works.
Yes.
I think over time it's going to be one of those movies that you just like settle in with whenever you just want to watch some Star Wars.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, astute point.
Thank you very much.
And if you have any other points that you would like to share with us,
dear listeners,
please reach out via Twitter at hyperspace_pod.
Or send us an email, hyperspacepodblast@gmail.com.
And be sure to check out our website for increasingly interesting Star Wars related content.
That's a good computer voice.
Thank you. That was my very pleasant, Android voice. I thought it was good.
I liked it.
Yeah.
All
Siri,
right.
Look out. I'm coming.
We'll talk to you later, guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.